What's up? Welcome back to Tales to Morrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today, and we got some RPG horror stories to cover. By the way, thank you so much for all the feedback in the comments. I'm not used to this yet, so thank you, I appreciate it. Whether it be about stories or about what I'm doing here or myself, I guess. Anyway, let's get to the first story. Player gets mad for me for not allowing them to have a young dragon as a pet. I'm a pretty new DM, though I've hosted a few campaigns. They haven't lived for long though, so that sucks. I've decided I'll finally try and host a long-lived campaign. Instead of just giving up on it and a few sessions in, I got 4 players, so that's nice. The same day the campaign is supposed to start, we're playing on Discord by the way, one of my players, let's call him Peter, asks me if he can have a young dragon as a pet. We're playing at level 1. Isn't there like a ranger subclass that could choose to have like a young dragon as a pet or like a little dragon fledgling that grows up over levels? That's a good idea. Hey Peter, have you considered playing that? I think it's called Drake Warden. I think that's what his subclass is called. Have you considered playing Drake Warden Ranger? I tell him no, but then Peter says it would be purely for roleplay and the dragon won't fight in combat. I still say no. He gets mad at me for not letting him have his fun. I call him immature, and then Peter said how I'm acting like, and I quote, "And your 13-year-old ass is going through an emo phase being serious about everything." I'm not 13, by the way. He says how he's mature and stuff, and I ask him if he's not gonna play. He says he isn't, so I kick him out of the Discord server. Just so y'all know, the player was playing a tiefling monk. I talked with the player. He's gonna have the hatchling dragon. However, he wants a purple dragon, which I'm manipulative and controlling, so I got a free boss for the party. Well, I'm hoping you're not gonna let him control the dragon, but I mean, hey, at least you got your BBG. They cultivate the dragon, eventually the dragon gets corrupted and turns against the party, and the first person they go after is Peter, the tiefling monk. Honestly, yeah, I mean, if that's your solution, then that's your solution, but at some point, if you tell a player no, you stand your ground regardless of what's going on, or you find a clever solution like this DM has. Anyway, get to the next story. Weirdly, it's always the player's fault when something goes wrong. Hey guys, I just wanted to share my story and vent out a little. Our party is comprised of 5 player characters, 2 of which are brand new to playing TTRPG at all, me and another guy, and the DM has already hosted other 2 tables with the rest of the party over the last 2 years. For the most part, it has been a great experience, and I've decided I want to try and DM for the next campaign, since I've always wanted to give it a shot. But there are some not so little things that are really grinding my gears and siphoning my enjoyment out of this experience. Our DM seems to always blame us and our PC whenever something doesn't go as planned. I get it that there are a lot of times when a party acts reckless and causes everything not expected to happen, but when this complaint starts to appear after every session, I think something is not quite right. I'll give some examples. Sometimes between the 3rd or 4th session, half our party were wiped out and needed to be replaced with the new characters after the group split up and met an NPC that would act as a boss encounter later down the campaign. The group tried to talk their way out of the encounter, but the NPC wanted the party to give out the other PCs to his group so that they could be sold as slaves. The party clearly did not want to abide that, so the only outcome was to enter combat, only to be wiped by a single fireball. This leads to a whole argument about how we shouldn't fought the guy because he was a late game boss and yada yada yada, and we should have just let promising to rat out our friends and then betray the NPC. But bear with me, there were no single indications in the plot of the encounter that it was a possibility, or even that this NPC was a damn boss. Yep, sounds like the DM didn't do good communicating with you guys, and listen, every now and then, even for me when I'm DMing, right, there are moments when players are doing something and I can tell that's like, if they're gonna do this, they're gonna either put one of the party members or the entire party in danger. So sometimes you just gotta drop the DM card and be like, listen, guys, this is a really bad idea. What you could do is potentially this or that, or you demonstrate through visual sense, such as like if the party attacks, the BBG is able to deflect a few attacks and says, don't do this, I'm way stronger than you, or, you know, some other RP lines, and, you know, basically say that, hey guys, listen, this guy is very, very tough. You feel like you may be a little bit underpowered or underleveled to take him on right now. I don't know, it feels like the DM is not communicating with the party or giving them any other options or even hands on remotely what's going on, but I could be wrong. Once we entered a dungeon where we needed to solve a puzzle so that we could access the chamber with the secrets and treasures. The gist of it was that we needed to choose the right option out of the 4 symbols. Easy, right? That was one of the most convoluted and not intuitive puzzles I've ever encountered, coupled with a weird poem and weird images that should have helped. Each failed attempt caused the party to take damage from a fire spray and be in flames for the next X turns. Now the thing is, the numbers of the burn were really off, because after only one mistake, one of my members of the party were already down to 0 HP. In the end, everything worked out, but that evolved in a whole speech about how this puzzle was really simple, and none of us were able to get it, and etc. After speaking with the DM and other players, I found out that the group had problems with the puzzle in other campaigns. The DM is always flabbergasted as no one can figure out the simplest of puzzles. Oh no, you can't figure out the simplest of puzzles. What could be wrong? Is it my inability to understand what's a simple puzzle and what is not? Because I clearly know the answer, my players won't? No, it's the players that are wrong. They're just too stupid. Like, seriously, like, if you're the only one that knows the answer to the puzzle, you should probably run it by other people, friends, colleagues, things like that. Be like, hey, listen, do you think you could solve this puzzle? Do you think this makes any sense, right? Next time you do some sort of a puzzle for any sort of room or anything, I'll run it by somebody and basically be like, hey, could you solve this? And if a regular person that doesn't even play D&D or somebody that does play D&D can't find a solution, your players probably won't, and your puzzles are a little bit too complex, a little too big brain. Recently, we just defeated this one NPC who was really strong and was kind of a boss from this one arc of the story. This NPC showed up out of nowhere and antagonized us, kidnapping some important people to us. When we asked this NPC to the DM, he just said that we were supposed to meet him early in the story, but we didn't make an effort to follow that. So that part of the story just continued running in the background until he just showed up at our doorstep, kidnapping people. When we found him, combat started immediately, and the NPC acted hostile towards us, so naturally we fought him and killed him. After the session was over, the DM was upset that we didn't talk to this guy, and that he wrote a whole backstory and lore to him, but we are never going to see it because we killed him too soon. Like, what? Yeah, what? Seriously, if you want the players to meet a specific NPC and they don't meet it at the time which you want them to meet them, that's fine. You're the DM, you're the storyteller, you're the brains behind this whole world. You are the world. Just give a stupid reason for them to meet that DNPC or NPC or whatever the heck they are later. And of course they're not gonna talk to the guy if he just goes immediately hostile. How the party's gonna talk to him if he goes immediately hostile? They're gonna see he's hostile, gonna be like, right, let's kill him. And you can't blame your players for that. The first story could have been debatable about lack of communication between players and DM, but this next couple has been very, very much convincing me that the DM just either doesn't know what the heck they're doing, or they can't communicate with the players or something, and clearly it's not the players' fault for everything going on. And that brings me to the final point, the story. I don't really see any direction in the story, we're just playing in what the end game of the campaign is, and I already pointed that out. But every time something about the story is brought up, the DM always insists the party's not following the cues to the story he's trying to tell, and that every time something important is brought up, we just ignore it. Okay, lesson 2 DMs 101 for anybody that ever even considers DMing or is new to DMing. I had to learn this myself too. The players will never do what you planned them to do, unless you railroad, and some railroading can be okay, but at the end of the day, if you leave the world to a player's free will, they will never, most of the chances, 99% of the time, they will never do what you want them to do. How are they supposed to know what you want them to do if you don't tell them? You can lead them along the path and stuff, but if they decide to take a detour, that's fine. You are the creator of the world. You run the world. You are the world. The NPCs, the environments, the roads, the paths, the caves, the dungeons, the monsters. You take the leading position in defining what the world what happens in this world and what the world does and what the players encounter. The least you can do, DM, is then work with your players and find an incentive of like, hey guys, could we be a little bit more like, I don't want to be railroady and stuff, but do you think maybe we could like get back on track on stuff? I have kind of something planned. You have the ability to either communicate with your players and ask them like, hey, I got something really cooking up this way, could y'all go this way? Or maybe find an incentive for the players to follow a specific thing, you know, the carrot on a stick sort of way. You gotta put that carrot on a stick and give it to the players. And I feel like the carrot on a stick is being replaced with an onion. And of course, players are not gonna chase a an onion. You can't be upset that players decide to do something they want to do. They are the main characters of the story. They have the agency. You should have fun too, but you need to understand when it's time to railroad a little bit and when it's time to let them go free will. If you allow your players free will, you have to understand that most of the time they will do what they want to do and not what you want to do. I know I can be a little obtuse at times, but for me these 8 months we've been playing all look like a bunch of unrelated side quests with no unifying goal in mind. Every time the DM hypes up something to be important, this one thing seems to just fade into the background until another important thing shows up. I get a feeling he's trying to tell this giant interconnected story where one action leads to another and where everything has a consequence of another thing. But I just feel like he doesn't know how to tell such a big story. I just feel like he has this one story he wants to tell and is not quite willing to adapt and move it to a better, including us all players. And sometimes even punishes us for not following along with the plan. Okay, another DM lesson, scale it down. No matter what you're doing, no matter how creative or elaborate you want to make it happen, scaling it down and expand it piece by piece by piece by piece. Having a grand story and stuff is completely fine and all, but you should focus on making it a piecemeal for your players to adventure through. Instead of your story seeming like a proper meal, it just seems like a big spaghetti bowl with all these intertwining threads everywhere, and they're somehow interconnected in this big mess. But you gotta find how they're connected, and when you chew one end, that destroys the other end, you know? It's kind of a big hodgepodge, and I feel bad for the OP, the players. You should probably tell your DM about this and be like, hey listen, maybe the story is just way too grand. Maybe we scale it down a little bit, find a way to include us, the players, into it to give us motivation and gusto and inspiration to want to follow through on some of the story beats, because I feel like there's a lot of communication the DM is not doing, and blaming your players is not going to be a good way to make players even want to be invested in any storytelling you're telling them. If things don't really make sense and don't add up one to one, that don't make sense. You want your NPC to be attacked? Be friendly. You want your puzzle to be easily solvable? Offer several hints. Hey listen, players can roll a thing called dice on things like investigation, arcana, history, religion, anything. You could give them any way and any sort of hints, but let them roll and stuff. If they get high enough, give them a teensy bitsy hint on how to solve the puzzle. Instead of, you know, just set a guy on fire and have him die. It's like, good job, idiot, you pressed the wrong button. Now you die. That's messed up. And that'll be our last story for today. I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and thanks so much for watching. If you like what I do here, consider subscribing, liking, whatever it is, and leave me feedback in the comments, whether for the story or for myself. Anyway, I'll see you next time in more Tales tomorrow. See ya.